is a new concept of democracy. I call it radical democracy. It emphasizes mobilization and empowerment. Venezuela, I think, is unique, or at least these last 9 years have been unique for Venezuela in that mobilization has taken place during these 9 years. In the past, throughout Venezuelan history, there are different critical junctures in which you can talk about massive mobilization, but in a crisis situation. Chavez has used mobilization, street mobilization, for instance, in order to survive politically. If he wasn't able to get the poor people onto the streets, he would have been, overthrown permanently in 2002. He was able to demonstrate that he had as much mobilization capacity as the opposition. The media in Venezuela didn't show that. There wasn't, you didn't have pictures, you didn't have articles about this massive mobilization of the Chavistas, only the mobilization of the opposition. This was leading into the coup in 2002. But nevertheless, if Chavez was not able to mobilize people, he would not have survived politically. So this was essential. And I think that mobilization of poor people over such a considerable period of time inevitably bolsters empowerment. So I think that these are two essential elements to the Venezuelan democracy. The remaining element is critical internal debate. This critical internal debate has taken place over a period of time, but informally. Most of the Chavista activists or leftists going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, so it's certainly understandable that there's a lot of debate. But they haven't established mechanisms in order to channel that debate. So I'd just like to end. How much time do I have left? Or have I gone over already? Okay, then I'm just going to conclude with two statements. One, I think that any balance regarding Chavez's failures and accomplishments has to take into account the kind of opposition that's taking place in Venezuela today. It's not a loyal opposition. It's an opposition which uses any trick in the book. And it's an opposition which is dominated, in my opinion, and there's a panel at 5 o'clock today about the right in Latin America. In my opinion, the so-called moderates of the opposition are in the back seat. It's an opposition in which the agenda is being set by the hardcore rightist opposition. And so, in the face of this kind of opposition, for instance, students taking over highways, cities being paralyzed, just 1 week before elections in December of last year. I mean, this is unheard of. You have elections, the opposition was participating in these elections, but at the same time they were creating chaos in Venezuela, trying to create it. So that in opposition like that, you can't have the same level of expectations or the same level of demands. It's something like Cuba. I mean, you can't analyze Cuba, you can't have the same expectations regarding the productivity of the Cuban economy with such an aggressive enemy just 90 miles away. And the same thing is true with Venezuela. The opposition is a disloyal opposition. It doesn't recognize Chavez's legitimacy, and it calls Chavez authoritarian, and it opposes everything Chavez says and does. The second point that I wanted to make is that the discussion within the Chavez movement really boils, the mechanisms, the debate is really essential. This is a revolution, this is a process of change that doesn't have a model. When Chavez talks about socialism in the 21st century, he's talking about a trial and error approach to socialism. And if there is not internal critical debate, then the errors that are inevitable will not be analyzed and overcome. Thank you.